Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 20th. I thought I should do a recap because I realized that yesterday afternoon I crossed the 100-mile mark. So, just some bullet points in the first 100 miles. I've now been out 10 nights and I spent one night in a shelter, one night in a hotel at Delaware Water Gap, and the rest of the nights in my tent. I definitely prefer my tent, particularly because the bugs have been kind of annoying the last couple days, and inside my tent is the only way to completely avoid the bugs. What else? I've definitely lightened my pack. That was one of my goals. I knew I started heavy, but after the first week, get a hotel room, empty out my pack completely, and then take another look at everything I have and only keep what I really need. I actually arranged for a resupply box on the night that I stayed in a hotel because I had dinner with friends, and my one friend works very close to where my daughter lives, so my daughter gave my friend the box. My friend gave the box to me. I had by that time gone through my pack and determined a few things I didn't need, so I sent them back with my friend to my daughter. So I already did one resupply box and one whatever you call sending stuff home. I already did one of those. Body's feeling good. Feet are a little bit sore naturally. I think last time I looked at my app it said 350,000 steps in the last 7 days, something like that. Last night I stopped early, mainly because I want to go to a diner for breakfast, where I'm heading now. But I stopped early, and that led me to starting early, and that really feels comfortable. Part of starting early, though, is silk blazing, which is a little... On the AT, we're always following the white blazes. There's one. Can you see him? The one on that side of the tree. Yeah, one on that side of the tree. For southbound people. So because the white blazes are such a part of everyday life, there have been other sorts of blazing that pop up. So I'm the first person on this section of the trail because I started moving at about 6 this morning. And so for that reason, I am silk blazing. And that means that I don't know if you can actually catch them sometimes, I'm walking through all of the spider webs that appeared last night. So I'm silk blazing. Which means I end up, can you see them? Anyway, which means I end up walking down the trail with both my trekking poles sticking out in front of me like I'm looking for two sword fights. And of course you can't mention sword fight without saying, I admit it, you're better than I am. Then why are you smiling? Perhaps it is because I know something you don't know. I am not left-handed. Okay, so we're on our way to a diner this morning. Very much looking forward to eggs. Man, I miss eggs for breakfast. And that's the trail in front of us. That was the 100-mile review. Okay, this is a recap to my 100-mile video. Some other details that I forgot. Oh, and a correction. I have not walked that many steps in the last 7 days. In the last 7 days, I have walked 215,000 steps, according to my app. I had one day, which was my 4th full day on the trail, where I walked 46,000 steps. That was 17 miles. And the good news about that was it was only my 4th day on the trail. Walked 17 miles, walked 15 the next day, felt fine. Didn't feel like I was pushing myself much on either day. So just something to keep in mind for later. I've been averaging probably 14 miles a day, but 17 was my biggest. I had one potential disaster this morning. I got moving and walked whatever, a mile, and then I heard something behind me. I turned around and it was my tent stakes. I keep my tent on the outside bottom of my back. I don't know if you can see. So my tent's on the outside with 2 straps, and after I heard something, I turned around and it was my tent stakes laying on the ground. And then when I took my backpack off to reset, my tent footprint was hanging out of the bag. So my tent has 5 pieces and I almost lost 2 of them. I mean, they're the 2 least important, but when you only have 5 pieces of anything, 2 are very important. So, oh, and the other thing is I broke one thing so far, which was a compression bag that I keep my puffy jacket in. And that was a 2.5 liter compression bag, and I just blew the side out, stuffing my jacket into it. So maybe I need a bigger one. But as it turns out, I just transferred my jacket to another bag that I have, which is not a compression bag. And that's actually an improvement because I use my compression bag, or excuse me, my puffy jacket in a bag as a pillow. So not in a compression bag, the jacket works much better as a pillow. So that one thing that broke actually ended up being an improvement. And here's some water. I don't know what it is. And here's my experience with New Jersey is more South Jersey than North Jersey, and all of these hills is not what I think of typically when I think of New Jersey. I think of flat when I think of New Jersey, because when I'm driving towards the ocean, you get to a certain point where there ain't no hills anywhere. So here's the hills of New Jersey. That's it. If I think of any more details, I'll fill you in. More Appalachian Boardwalk. There's some water under this stuff. This section, rather. I wonder how many feet of this there are, if anybody knows. Because it goes on for a while. This must just be a very flat area where water just sits like a swamp. It's not bad for variety. Walking on wood instead of rocks or dirt for a little while. I think I'm still in New Jersey. It's hard to tell because the trail goes so tight along the border between New York and New Jersey. For instance, I just jumped off the trail to have lunch in Unionville, New York, but it's possible that the trail was still in New Jersey, but the short distance I walked off of it was in New York. Whoa! That one really moved. Good morning, New York. Today is so much cooler than the last couple days. Last couple days was like a high of 88 and 90. Today's only going to be a high of 62, which is perfect. If I was to order weather, that's exactly what I would order. But I wanted to point out, I'm in New York now, and there's definitely a very different feel here. More like there's a higher canopy because there's much less green on the ground. Pennsylvania and Jersey, there was a lot more. The ground was all green, but this is more of a forest feeling, jungle feeling. I know it's not a jungle, but I mean the jungle feeling that you have a higher canopy, so very little growth on the ground. So I just noticed the difference. Been starting out earlier, which is great. I'm hoping to see more animals. I did see a beaver. That was cool. So I'm swimming, so I didn't see his whole body, but saw a lot of them. Haven't seen any bigger animals really. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping to see a bear. but you know, not yet. But even starting earlier in the morning, I see more chipmunks and more squirrels. So that's cool. They're out here. See you down the trail. I'm definitely on top here. See, it drops away over there. Goes up just a little bit in that direction. And then that way it just drops right off. And that's the way I'm going. And there's an extra clue for me. Hey T, that way. Good morning. Here we are in New York. Today is my first rainy day. You can probably tell. So I'm a little suited up. Got my pack cover on my pack. It seems to do a very thorough job. Last night was interesting because I stayed in a shelter that was the first shelter for at least 20 miles. And the rain was expected to start around 5 o'clock last night. So I was on a mission to get to that shelter because I figured every northbound hiker within 30 miles would be on a mission to get to that shelter. And that was pretty much the case. So I got there like 3:30 and I got the last bunk. There were 6 bunks, 3 bunks, 6 people. So that place is supposed to sleep 6. By the end of the night, there were 11 people sleeping in there because the floor was filled. And there were, I don't know, 8 tents outside, I guess. Because really, in a situation like that, if you get your tent all set up, then you're fine inside your tent. Your tent will get wet, but you won't. And nothing inside the tent will get wet as long as you're set up before it starts raining. So it was very crowded, but it worked. Also, there was a pizza place that delivered to there. So I got in on one of those deliveries and got a hoagie for dinner. So that was good. Today is going to rain much of the day. So there's no avoiding getting wet today. But at least last night, I was able to stay dry all day and then sleep dry. And then today, rain. But it's also not going to get above 55 degrees today, which is music to my ears because anytime I would choose 45 degrees over 85 degrees.
Good morning. I'm starting today's video before I even get moving. So you can see this, I'm inside my Big Agnes Fly Creek 1-person tent. I have everything in here today because there was a 70% chance of rain for most of the hours last night. As it turns out, it didn't rain at all, so that's good. But my dirty shoes are in here and everything. I actually have my socks hanging from yesterday in an attempt to dry them, but because the humidity was so high, they didn't dry at all. So fortunately, the one thing that I have a backup of is socks. So I'll wear my other socks today, and it's supposed to rain all day today, so there's very little chance of them drying. But I am in the routine of pretty much packing up everything before I step out of my tent at all, which is kind of what I think of as rainy day rules. Like if it was raining right now, then you would have to pack up everything before you stepped outside, but I do that every day anyway. So this is my sleeping pad. It's inflatable, and I'm in my sleeping pad, and I'm in my sleeping bag, and I'm in my sleeping bag liner. The sleeping bag liner is just a little flimsy, almost nothing, but it's great because this gets dirty instead of your sleeping bag get dirty, so this is a lot easier to throw in the washing machine. And also, there's been nights when I slept in only this, basically, because it's so warm. So I really like that. But officially, the way the day starts is by letting the air out of your sleeping pad. Because as long as you're laying on this nice, warm, soft sleeping pad, then, you know, you'll just lay here all day. But as soon as you do this, then all of a sudden you're not so comfortable anymore, because now you're laying on the ground. So time to get moving.
It's a rainy day in New York. I got my hands-free umbrella set up, which is actually very comfortable and helpful. I was seriously considering throwing away the umbrella many times, but now that I've actually used it in the rain, I'm going to keep it. So here's the trail in the rain. I'm actually approaching another unique section here, so I thought I'd catch this. Of course, there we have our blazes telling us to turn. It's been raining. 2 nights ago it rained a lot. Yesterday during the day it rained lightly, but lightly for many hours, so all the creeks are very high. I passed several creeks that were supposed to be water sources and before it rained that were not water sources because the water was too low and running too slow. But all the creeks are high now. So this is New York still, but I think I'm only 25 miles from Connecticut, something like that.